Happy Wednesday, football fans, and welcome into another edition of the Pro Football Chase podcast. I'm Isaac Signs, and I thank you for joining me. In today's episode, NFL defensive tackle Jerel Worthy and I recap Week 14 and discuss the 49ers win in New Orleans, the Patriots' struggles, and the current playoff picture. We also predict Week 15's matchups. This is the Pro Football Chase podcast, a podcast that has featured interviews with Rams wide receiver Robert Woods.
To reach 1,000 yards, and last year, unfortunately, I got hurt midway in the season. But other than that, just working and grinding to get to this point, and finally broke it with a lot of games left.
Packers wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Just the fact that we got all-pro on the other side of the ball. In Devontae. So when you got a guy like that, that's just going to get the main focus. Obviously, people start to know my name a little bit after I made a few plays here and there.
Broncos offensive guard Ronald Leary.
It would either have to be a counter or a pin and pull play when we get on the edge and run. I think it's always impressive when big guys can get out that stance and move and hit somebody. So,
and rising stars Dalton Risner, Charles Amenahu, and Jawan Williams. This is a podcast that offers player perspectives from some well-decorated veterans, including T.J. Hushmanzada.
And people will say, "Oh, well, is Dak Prescott a franchise quarterback? Look at his record. It tells you he is. Oh, he has a great defense. He has Ezekiel Elliott. You tell me a quarterback in the entire NFL that's not Tom Brady that does more with less."
Game previews, recaps, and analysis. Turn the volume up. The chase is on, and the chase is live. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into the Pro Football Chase podcast. It's Isaac Signs with you, and joining me yet again is my co-host, NFL defensive tackle Jerel Worthy. We are gearing up for week number 15 of the NFL season. So, Jerel, how you doing this morning, man?
I am doing excellent this morning, man. It's a phenomenal day. It's nut check time for a lot of these teams, and going into week 15. It's very important, man, for these teams to understand how things are going to finish up going down the stretch, man. So I'm very excited to talk about these teams today. I'm very excited to share my opinions, and well, let's get to it, bro.
As we do every single week here on the podcast, we have our offensive player of week 14. So this is a way to put a wrap on the previous week. So I'll go first, Jerel, and then you can give your player, but I'm going to go with 49ers wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders. After going back to watch that game, he was sensational in what he was able to do to help propel his team to a big-time victory. One thing about Emmanuel Sanders is he had 7 catches for 157 yards and a touchdown. Now, that touchdown was for 75 yards. And then he also completed a pass for 35 yards. He threw one in a trick play for Kyle Shanahan. He did it all, and that was a connection with running back Raheem Mostert in the second quarter. He became the first player in 49ers history with a passing and receiving touchdown in the same game. So I have to tip my cap to Emmanuel Sanders for what he was able to do against the Saints.
Yeah, Isaac, I know it's going to be a good week, man, when the first topic at hand we have an agreement on. I know a lot of people want to talk about Jimmy G. He was actually announced this week as the offensive player of the week for the NFC, which is he had a phenomenal game throwing for 349 yards in a hostile environment like New Orleans. But it was phenomenal to watch Emmanuel Sanders go out there and have that type of display, what he did on Sunday against New Orleans, man. As you said before, he had the 7 catches, man, for 157 yards. He even threw 4 touchdowns, which was phenomenal to see. Kyle Shanahan had everything working for him on all cylinders, and I mean, it was exciting, man. I told you earlier in the week, man, you have to have that type of performance when you're going to face New Orleans, because when you're playing them at home, you're not only playing New Orleans, but you're playing the city, the passion, and everything that comes behind it. So the 49ers had everything working for them. And Emmanuel Sanders, it is phenomenal to see him have such a spectacular game like he's accustomed to having, from his years in Pittsburgh and the earlier years with Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. And so it's exciting to see him get back out there and do what he's accustomed to doing.
It is quite the fascinating story for Emmanuel Sanders, who was traded from the Denver Broncos midseason at the trade deadline, now finds himself on a contender with the 49ers, and he is thriving very well in San Francisco. So let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Jerel, why don't you go ahead and give me your defensive player of the week?
Yeah, it was. There's a few guys that we could have talked about this week, but my guy is Donnell Hunter out of Minnesota. The performance that he was able to put up against Detroit was phenomenal. 7 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, and he led his team in sacks this year, and he's continuing on an impressive rate, man. The youngest player to reach 50 career sacks. He's on his way to being the guy that we're going to be talking about trying to get a gold jacket if he continues at this pace. And it's just exciting to see. A lot of people aren't talking about the Vikings and the impact that they've and the improvement that they've made over the previous weeks, and they're starting to be in contention for the NFC North. And with Green Bay's performance and how they've been looking a little shaky against inferior teams over the last couple of weeks, the Vikings are right where they need to be, and Donnell Hunter is playing at a high level, and it's very exciting to see.
Danielle Hunter is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. Although his stats, they are just eye-popping. The guy is dominant. He's efficient, and he shows up every single week. He's a physical monster and a freak. His athleticism off the edge. So I'm glad you brought him up because he does not get talked about enough. And for me, Jerel, I had a hard time deciding between 2 players that play for the same team. So I'm going to go ahead and just announce them as co-defensive players of the week. And I'm going to give it to Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald and defensive end Dante Fowler Jr. Donald had 2 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1 pass defense, and 4 quarterback hits on Sunday night against the Seahawks. And Fowler had 4 total tackles, 2 solo, 1.5 sacks, 1.5 tackles for loss, and 3 quarterback hits. Both players were instrumental in keeping Russell Wilson flustered in the pocket during that dominant 28-12 win on Sunday. So both of these guys, Jerel, they are starting to hit their peak performances at the right time. I know you and I both chose the Rams to beat the Seahawks last week, and they did not disappoint. These 2 guys were nearly unblockable, and especially as the 3rd and 4th quarter came on, the Seattle offensive line just could not account for either of them.
Yeah, see, that's the strength of the Rams defense, man, is their defensive line. Those playmakers that they have up front, Dante Fowler, Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, those guys are essentially is what runs this entire team. I mean, I know we like to talk about the offense and what Todd Gurley does and Jared Goff, but it's essentially these guys being able to stop the run and get to the quarterback on a week-in and week-out basis. You have the 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and I mean, it's phenomenal to see when these guys get to working. And as I stressed to you guys last week when we had the podcast, and we talked about with Arthur Moats, and you guys wanted to take the Seahawks when it came to the Rams. Aaron Donald's always had a good number against the Seattle Seahawks in previous games played, and so having these guys being at home, like I said, the lights were on, the stars were out, and they were excited to play, and it was a great showing and performance that him and Dante Fowler put on.
We'll be talking a little bit more about the Rams coming up on the podcast. But let's go ahead and talk about the underappreciated storyline of Week 14. I love this one. We get to talk about a player or storyline in the NFL that isn't necessarily been given the credit that it deserves. So, Jerel, why don't you go ahead and lead us off right here?
Well, Isaac, for me, the underappreciated story, I know it's kind of it's been under the radar, but kind of on the radar. I think the performance of the rookie out of Missouri, 2nd-round pick, Drew Lock for the Denver Broncos, 6'4" quarterback, 228 pounds. He's been a guy that's led the Denver Broncos to a 2-0 record over the last couple weeks. With all the issues that they've had on the offensive line, for him to only get sacked one time in those couple games, while Allen was going down 6 times, and Joe Flacco having been sacked 29 times, and it's something that they have working, man. He's been able to have a completion rate of 72% over the last couple games, and going into Houston with everything that Houston had to play for, and to completely annihilate them with his 3 touchdowns early in the first half was phenomenal to see. And I mean, it just poses the question, with John Elway sitting up there at the helm, do you have a quarterback of the future? And I think with his size and athleticism, he was a second round pick. He's not a guy that a lot of people talk about, but to be drafted within the first 3 rounds in itself is you're a guy that's taken that they think can have an impact on the team right away. And so John Elway has confidence in this kid, and they continue to put him out there and showcase his skills, and it's really good, man, to see Big Fangio having an opportunity to have some success with a quarterback that's really been unknown all year, and really getting this offense and this defense fired up.
For me, I'm going to have to give it to Boston Scott, the Eagles running back. On Monday Night Football, it was a little bit of a snoozer in the first half. The Giants
Yes.
and the Eagles, sloppy play. It was raining all evening there in Philadelphia. But Boston Scott, and this is an injury-depleted Eagles team, by the way. They were down their top 3 wide receivers after Alshon Jeffrey went out for the game. Lane Johnson had gotten hurt. Things were just swirling out of control, but in comes the unsung hero, Boston Scott. 10 carries, 59 yards, and a touchdown to go along with 6 receptions for 69 yards. Look, his numbers were not stellar because Miles Sanders did do some work as well. He had 45 yards rushing, 24 yards in the receiving game. But Boston Scott, he brought that maximum effort, grit. He ran with a purpose, and he brought energy back into the Link after those fans booed their team off the field at halftime, trailing 17-3 to Eli Manning and the Giants. So Boston Scott and what he was able to do, man, I have to give him the underappreciated storyline of week number 14.
Yeah, he had a great impact. Philly is just the type of town and team, man, that they have right now, where they're in that type of slugfest. They're in the Rocky Balboa down to the nitty gritty type of slugfest with the number of injuries that they've had, and they're having to overcome a lot of adversity. I think. Like I said, man, this division it's really been up in the air, and it's very good to see a lot of young guys have opportunity to play. Even a lot of old guys have an opportunity to play. Shout out Eli Manning and what he was able to do, man. I wish he would have got an opportunity to showcase what he can do in overtime, man. It was really good to see, some young Eli out there throwing it around a little bit. And he had a really good game, especially against one of my old friends, Darby, man. I thought he definitely underachieved last week, and it would have been, it's kind of sad to see, but it was really good. It was really impressive to see Eli Manning air it out.
Let's go ahead and move on to Fact Fiction. We have a couple of statements here. If you're a first-time listener, I'll go ahead and read a statement. Jerel and I will discuss whether it is a fact or fiction, and we'll give our points why. And so the first topic here is about the San Francisco 49ers, 11-2 after beating the Saints in a big-time game that has implications for seeding in the NFC. Now the Niners are the new number 1 seed in the conference. So, Jerel, here's the statement, and we will discuss. The 49ers should be considered the clear-cut front-runner to represent the NFC in Super Bowl 54 after overtaking the number 1 seed on Sunday. Is it fact or is it fiction? I mean, do you still think there's other teams in the NFC that you would take over the Niners right now?
Man, see, this was a very tough question to answer for me. If you're looking at paper and you're basing it off of, what has been done and things of that nature, yes, they're the clear-cut favorite to represent the NFC, in the Super Bowl. But if I'm basing things off a situation and how a team is playing at a certain point in time, I would not necessarily give it up to them. I think, the 49ers has an excellent team. I think that they're on track to do everything that they set out to do. And I think what's most important is to point out that Jimmy G is starting to gain traction at the right time in their season for their offense to be successful and for them to move forward and continue to move the chains. Because when you look at this team, they're not like big bruisers up front where they're just going to run the ball down your throat like years past when they had Colin Kaepernick and those guys went deep into the playoffs and ultimately to the Super Bowl. This isn't a bruiser type of offense where we're going to just give you the ball 40 times a game. This is an offense that relies on play action pass, dinks and dunks, screens, having an opportunity to make big plays with the speedsters that they have over the top. And so I think when I look on paper, I want to say that they're going to be the clear-cut favorite and to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. But I just think if the Seahawks and them run into each other at another point in time, with the way that Russell Wilson has always had their number, I would have to give the edge to Russell Wilson in that situation. Just have played them in that division, having an opportunity to see them over and over again, and having the success that he's had with virtually nobody as opposed to the superstars that the 49ers are playing with on their team at this point in time now, the young superstars. And so if there was a situation where they ran into the Seahawks and later in the year, as opposed to like earlier in the year like they did, I think the Seahawks will have their number, and it would definitely be a hell of a game to see.
I'm going to say fact to that statement. I do see this 49ers team as the favorites in the NFC, and I understand that there's still 3 weeks to play. And looking at the Niners' schedule, they have two tough opponents, and both of them are divisional games because they'll host the Falcons on Sunday, and then they're going to have to play the Rams, who look like they're peaking at the right time, and then they're going to play those Seahawks who you're just talking about, Jerel. They're going to go to Seattle this time after the Seahawks went to San Francisco earlier this year in prime time and pulled out a stunner in overtime. So I completely understand that viewpoint that you're presenting right now, but looking at the personnel on this 49ers team, now I will preface my point by saying San Francisco did get hit with the injury bug big time. They lost their starting center, Weston Richburg, for the season with a torn patellar tendon. And then Dee Ford is going to be sidelined for the next 3 weeks with a lingering hamstring injury. Richard Sherman, grade 2 hamstring strain. So they lost a couple of players in Sunday's game against the Saints. But what makes this team stand out from the rest in the NFC, it's coaching. It's Kyle Shanahan, his ability to dial up plays in crunch time. Jimmy Garoppolo, we're seeing him starting to take that jump forward, making plays down the field. 4 touchdown passes, 349 yards, game-winning, last-minute drive connected with George Kittle, who came through with that big old run where he stiff-armed Williams and put the Niners in position to win that game. And Deebo Samuel, the rookie, he's starting to come through in a big-time way to complement Emmanuel Sanders. And defensively, that is really the big-time difference that San Francisco has, in my opinion. You look at that front seven, they're number 1 in pass defense, 2nd in total defense, and then, of course, they are struggling in run defense, Jerel, 22nd in that category, so they're going to have to shore that up. But the makeup of their roster, the way they're able to overcome adversity and battle back in these tough games, Jerel, because both of their losses this season, they are 11-2. They've come by 3 points, 27-24 to Seattle in overtime, and then 20-17 to those Baltimore Ravens in what was a slugfest there in Baltimore. So I do like this Niners team, and I do see them as the number 1 favorite in the NFC to represent in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you make some compelling arguments, man, that gives them a lot of traction. They seem to be the most complete team in the NFL at this point in time now. They have defense, they have the quarterback. They with the trade of Emmanuel Sanders, they have a veteran receiver that knows how to run the entire route tree, along with a speedy receiver in Deebo Samuel that's been able to emerge as a very exciting receiver to watch this year. So you definitely make some arguments about the 49ers having an opportunity to contend. I just think for me, it's personally going to come down to week 17 and therefore on. Once they run into Seattle, seeing a MVP elite Russell Wilson at that point in time, I just want to I want to gauge everything off that Week 17 matchups. There's a ton of them that's in the NFL that's going to be going down to the wire, i.e. the Steelers and the Ravens and a couple others.
The best matchups are up ahead, and I'm looking forward to watching them. So let's go to the next fact-fiction statement. Jerel, we know the Patriots are back in the headlines about a potential cheating scandal. We won't get much into that until the NFL makes a ruling in that investigation, bro. But it is certainly not surprising to all of us with the whole Bengals play calling and sideline. But we're going to talk about the Patriots, just not on that yet until, as I said, the NFL comes down with an official ruling. The talk of the town there in Foxborough has been their offense and how they've struggled this season. We saw it again against Kansas City. They struggled to get going. Tom Brady looks flustered. There's not a whole lot going for them on that side of the ball. Now, luckily for Bill Belichick's squad, that defense has won them a lot of games for the physicality that they're playing with. So here's a statement, and we are going to discuss the Patriots' lack of offensive firepower will cost them a deep playoff run this season. Is it fact or fiction?
I would have to say that that's fact. I think their defense and special teams has virtually done everything that they could do to keep this team in contention. And I think that, obviously Tom Brady's struggles isn't just solely on Tom Brady. But a lot of their struggles is on Tom Brady. The fading away when, you have opportunities to stand in the pocket and complete a pass. When we go back to that last play against Julian Edelman, if he doesn't fade away, does the Peyton Manning, Eli Manning throwaway to reserve themselves, I think if he stands in there and takes that hit and delivers an accurate pass that he's accustomed to making, then we wouldn't even be sitting here talking about the Patriots' struggles. We'll be talking about how the Patriots had an opportunity to come back and they had an opportunity to compete in overtime against the Chiefs. And so when I look at the Patriots, I want to start up front. Their offensive line doesn't look the same. They don't look effective when they're trying to run the football. They don't look impressive in their play action passes. They're letting guys sweep through and come through and there's been a lot of pressure in Brady's face in which he's not accustomed to. And so I think at this point in time, you have to try to find ways to protect Tom Brady and also get guys out into routes. We know that Julian Edelman is going to be running the option routes in most cases. Otherwise, he's going to be running double moves down the sideline. But they don't have another playmaker other than Philip Dorsett, who's had some phenomenal games this year and has some not so phenomenal games this year. They don't have another guy that gives them that threat that we have to put another safety over the top, or we have to double down and bracket this guy when he's running a lot of inside routes. I think at the end of the day, they're gonna have to bite the bullet, swallow their pride, and they're gonna have to go out into free agency and try to find a player that's gonna have an opportunity to compete with them. I know that they don't want to do the Antonio Brown thing, but I know a player as in like Dez Bryant, a guy that's been out there showcasing his skills, showcasing that he's been competing, that he's mentally and physically in the right mind in order to come back and make an NFL comeback and compete for a contender. He's a big guy that can get off press and has a big catch radius. And so I think at that point in time, you could look into a guy like that. He's a non-guaranteed type of deal in order to keep these guys afloat, and in order to make a similar splash and lift some spirits in the locker room in order for them to get moving offensively. And so, I mean, when I'm looking at that, I look at the offensive line and then I go to coaching. Josh McDaniels is going to be up for a lot of coaching jobs this year. But if I'm a guy that's running a team, I'm just trying to sit here and think that, with Brady's inefficiencies and how he's been, down and up over the past couple of years, I got to look at the coaching, the play calling, and the way that they've been running their offense has been very subpar. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, this is his resume just as well as it is Tom Brady's and the offensive line and the receivers. So they're going to have to figure something out.
I'm going to actually oppose you. I'm going to say fiction. I know the sky is falling in New England right now. They're entering Week 15 having lost 2 games in a row for the first time this season, while also experiencing their first loss at home in 22 games. So there's a whole lot of things unfolding and unraveling there. And I think you're making some good points as well about the Patriots and how they just aren't firing on all cylinders. But I will say that the reason why I feel like this Patriots team is still going to make a run into the playoffs, it's because of this defense. I know offensively, right now, they do not have much firepower. Julian Edelman is their go-to guy. They are feeling the absence of Rob Gronkowski, not having that big body at tight end. Tom Brady, surely, I bet you, is really, really wishing that Gronkowski played one more season at this point in the year. And you look at their receiving core. I mean, you mentioned Philip Dorsett. He's battled injuries. And I think one thing that has kind of fallen short of expectations, Jerel, is the acquisition of Mohamed Sanu. You and I, we both talked about the trade here on the podcast, and we were both in agreement that this was a phenomenal move for the Patriots, a guy that represents that Patriots way, hard-nosed player, good blocker on the outside, physical, but maybe his age is showing, and a lot of people saw his production decline in Atlanta, but people just figured, well, now he's in New England, he's with Tom Brady, he's with Josh McDaniels, he's going to thrive now. Well, the Patriots really haven't seen a whole lot from him now. Granted, he's been dealing with injuries as well. He's got that ankle sprain, so, he's a little banged up as well. But I think that has been a disappointment. The only saving grace, I think, for this Patriots offense is the development of N'Keal Harry, their first-round wide receiver, who has been playing the last couple of weeks. He's been out of sorts a little bit. I know he ran a wrong route that resulted in an interception a couple of weeks ago, so he was put in the doghouse. They're going to have to rely on him to get up to speed a little bit more in that offense, and they were saying that McDaniels' offense is so complex. But I do agree with you, Jerel. Their offensive line, you look at Isaiah Wynn, Joe Thuney, Ted Karras, who's been dealing with a knee injury, Shaq Mason, Marcus Cannon. That starting five has not been as effective in previous years. And you look at Sony Michel, Jerel. Last postseason, that guy went on a tear, and this year he has 653 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns with a mediocre, underwhelming 3.5 yards per carry average, so no run game to speak of. But I'm still going to say this team is going to be a factor in the playoffs because of that defense. We talked about how dominant they are. And in the playoffs, defenses win games. I mean, shutting down opposing offenses. They're 10-3 still. The final 3 games, I like them to win out. I mean, they got at Cincinnati 1-12, home to Buffalo, which that will be their biggest challenge, who's 9-4, and then they finished with the Dolphins 3-10 in Week 17. So while there's a whole lot of panic, Jerel, in New England, the Patriots are probably going to finish at 13-3 and still push for a first-round bye.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the scheduling, obviously, you'll definitely take in favor of the Patriots. I think realistically, it's the offense that the offenses they're gonna have to see in the playoffs, and they're gonna be running back into the Patrick Mahomes. They're gonna be running back into the Lamar Jacksons, the Deshaun Watsons of the league, and so. When I look at those 3 quarterbacks, those are the guys that essentially kicked my tail this year, and I had no answer for it. And so when I have an opportunity to go back into the playoffs and I'm going back against them, I know Bill Belichick is a hell of a coach, and he's a Hall of Fame guy. Everything, everything is definitely works in his favor when it comes to X's and O's. But these 3 players are generational type players, man, and it's hard to shut down a guy like that. On multiple occasions. And I just think at the end of the day, if they don't have an offense to keep up with the exciting play of these 3 players that they're going to have to go through in order to be in the Super Bowl, then they're definitely going to be in trouble. I think that their defense is going to have opportunities to make plays, but these quarterbacks, man, that they're going to be facing, they have things about them that you can't scheme. And so at the end of the day, they're going to have ability to make plays, and the Patriots are going to have opportunities to keep up.
And I will say, I think Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Robert Kraft, I think all those guys, they are absolutely loving it right now because the Patriots, they're getting bad PR. They're having people doubt them again. They're getting bulletin board material with all these people shutting them down right now. So I think they're loving it right now. And yet again, as we see time and time again, I'm sure when the time comes, they're going to roll out all their top play calls. They're going to get in sync, and we're going to see this Patriots team go far again, but you do make some valid points. There are some concerns. Yes, offensively, we'll see how these things sort out, but I fully expect them to finish this season strong and get in a good position to secure a first-round bye. So, Jerel, we're going to go ahead and move on to a topic of debate before we get into Week 15 game picks. And this has to do with two in-the-hunt teams, one from each conference, AFC, NFC. We got the Titans, we got the Rams. They're both playing good football. So here is the debate topic. Which 8-5 in-the-hunt playoff team is suited to have more success in their respective conference should they make the postseason? Is it the Tennessee Titans, who are rolling with Tannehill, or is it the Los Angeles Rams?
Man, so after looking at both teams and they're both 8-5, I think for me personally, I would have to go with the Tennessee Titans. In order for them to have success, they have to run the ball, play great defense. The play action pass must be impactful for them in order for them to remain successful, a team moving forward. But the play of Derrick Henry, man, the consistency with him going over 100 yards week in and week out, I think he's up to 4 or 5 weeks consecutively now. They know what they have to do in order to make noise, and I think they have their confidence in their defense. They have the confidence in their offensive line that they know that they can be bruisers. And the play of rookie A.J. Brown, man, has been really spectacular this year. I know we like to talk about Ryan Tannehill, but this kid has come onto the scene. He's big, he's fast, and he's been able to literally throw DBs to the side when he's on his way to the end zone. And so I personally think that they have everything that they need in order to make the run. The Rams don't have the offensive line and the consistent running game like they did last year with C.J. Anderson and Todd Gurley working together in order for them to be successful. And I just don't necessarily see them making a big push in the NFC when I'm looking at teams like San Francisco, Seattle, Green Bay. I just don't necessarily think that they would have the opportunity to compete with those teams.
Yeah, and Tennessee, what they've been able to do, Jerel, it's been really impressive. Mike Vrabel, I know earlier this season, I was questioning, well, is this guy going to stay around? Because under Marcus Mariota, they just couldn't quite get any offense going. Their defense has always been very strong under Dean Pease, who came over from Baltimore, came out of retirement. So I really respect what the Titans got going on. And they got a big game, by the way, coming up against the Texans. And that's going to decide who's going to be on top of the division with the last 2 weeks to play. So we'll go ahead and preview that game here in a little bit. But I'm going to have to go with the LA Rams. So I know you brought up the tough NFC conference, and in the NFC West alone, you got the Niners and you got the Seahawks in there. But should they be able to catch the Vikings, who they're just a game back for that playoff spot in the NFC? I like what they're doing right now. You know, it's been a roller coaster season for Sean McVay and this Rams team. There's been moments where people have questioned Sean McVay about, well, maybe it's time for the Rams to pull the plug. You know how quickly these storylines are continuing to alter throughout the season, but the Rams, they've won 3 of their last 4 games. Their loss came against the Ravens 45-6 when they got embarrassed at the Coliseum on Monday Night Football. But now they're starting to peak, Jerel, at the right time. We're starting to see this offense look explosive. Vintage 2018 Rams performance against the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. McVay seemed like he was one step ahead of Pete Carroll all night. The play action game was working. There were crossers running open in the secondary. They're starting to utilize the jet sweep a little bit more. So the Rams, they're looking good. They're making big strides. Wade Phillips has the defense starting to play a little bit better. I know Jalen Ramsey, they've had a mix-up in that secondary. Troy Hill has looked really good, who stepped in for an overshifted LA secondary. By the way, he put together a big-time performance. Again, it goes back to that front seven, Jerel. We talked about this being the strength of the Rams team. Dante Fowler, Aaron Donald, and a lot of people are not talking about him, but he is having himself a really strong season. Clay Matthews, people thought he was washed up when he finished his time in Green Bay, but he has hit the fountain of youth in LA, and he is starting to become a factor. They got the Cowboys coming up, which I am expecting them to beat them down into a pulp, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And then they got the Niners, Jerel. So this is going to be a real tough challenge for them. We'll see if they're back when they have to go to Santa Clara and take on the 2-loss Niners team, and then they'll finish with the Cardinals at home. So if they can win 2 of their final 3 games, finish at 10-6, they'll have a chance to get into the playoffs. But knowing how tough this NFC is, they may have to go unbeaten, Jerel. But nonetheless, I still like this Rams team to have more success in the playoffs over a team like the Titans in the AFC, just considering the makeup they have with the coaching staff, with the personnel, and what they're able to do as far as potential. And we've already seen that happen last year.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have everything that they need. I mean, obviously you have Jalen Ramsey on the outside, Eric Weddle in the back. Clay Matthews is going to have an opportunity to do his thing coming back and playing well. And Aaron Donald and Dante Fowler, they're doing their thing. They have the veteran leadership in order to succeed and get this thing done. I think just for me personally, the success of Todd Gurley is going to be the ultimate factor for them. And I think if they don't have an identity and they're not giving him the ball to where he can be having those late pushes where he's going over 100 yards and, keeping the chains rolling and the time of possession in their favor, I don't necessarily see them continuing their success. I think the Cowboys are going to give them a hell of a game this week. And I know we want to talk, we're going to get into our picks and everything like that. But I don't want to necessarily write off Dallas just right away. And I think the Rams coming into Jerry World is going to be a big test for them. And so I personally think they're going to be on the ropes the next few weeks, man. I mean, San Francisco is going to be very tough, and the Cardinals are no pushover either, man. I think they took the Steelers down to the wire, and I know the personnel is not the same, but I mean they're continuing to improve their play, and so they're going to be trying to play spoiler for a lot of different teams.
Good topic right there. You got the Titans, I got the Rams. So now we get to go in to these Week 15 game picks, which I like to talk about. Let's go ahead and start on Thursday Night Football and what should be a massacre. The 5-8 Jets going to Baltimore to take on the 11-2 Ravens. 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. I am going Ravens 34-10. John Harbaugh probably is going to have the luxury of pulling all his starters in the fourth quarter. Complete beatdown over the New York Jets.
I personally would agree with you, man. I think that they're going to have a dominated performance. I personally have them winning 41-14, and I saw that him and RG3 would get at least 50 yards rushing, and so that's going to be my bold prediction. And so, hopefully Le'Veon Bell proves me wrong, and he can go out there and ball like he did in the bowling alley. Shout out to my Spartan dog. That's my Spartan dog. I love you, bro. But if he can go out there with that same flavor and give them a little bit of a competition, I think it would be exciting to see. But I do have the Ravens dominating 41-14.
And maybe we could see that Heisman package again with Mark Ingram, Robert Griffin, and Lamar Jackson all on the field. Who knows? I'm looking forward to seeing Jackson in prime time. It's going to be a blowout unless something unpredictable happens. Next matchup here, 10-3 Patriots at the 1-12 Bengals. So this is a little bit of an investigation going on about these Pats trying to steal the hand signs of the Bengals offense and Zach Taylor. Say what you want about it. We'll see what happens with the investigation, but I'm taking the Pats 28-13 on the road. This is a Patriots team that I expect to dominate on defense, force a couple of turnovers, although Dalton is back under center, but New England, they're going to come out on top.
Man, no, New England don't have to win by 2 touchdowns. They have to win by like 4 touchdowns. You literally have to blow out the Cincinnati Bengals to where you make people feel like there was never ever a need to be under investigation for anything. And so I personally think that they're going to come out and make a statement. I have them winning in a dominated performance, 35-10. And so hopefully they make me right, and Bill Belichick has the opportunity to shine.
Bucks at Lions, 6-7 Tampa. So they're starting to do some winning. Jameis Winston's playing well, also turning the ball over, which we are all accustomed to by now. Lions 3-9-1. Give me Tampa Bay to keep on rolling. I know Mike Evans is likely done for the year, but I still think they got the weapons. Chris Godwin out there, 34-20. Give me Tampa over Detroit.
I personally will take Tampa over Detroit, man. it's so fun, like watching Jameis Winston play because you know he's gonna either light it up on the yards or he's gonna light it up with interceptions. So it's like you never necessarily know what you're gonna get. Hopefully he continues his hot streak. I personally have them winning 24-13, and hopefully they can continue their dominating performance on offense.
Bears at Packers, a big-time NFC North battle. The Bears at 7-6 are trying to stay alive. Packers 10-3. I actually have an upset here, Jerel. The Packers have been a little bit underwhelming. I know the 10-3 record is deceiving, but they have been very inconsistent, and they continue to show weakness up front on defense. They're getting pushed around, and so I actually had a very difficult time choosing a winner in this game, but I do like the Bears going to Green Bay with that defense at full strength, starting to play a little bit of that bully ball on the ground with David Montgomery, Mitchell Trubisky starting to look a little bit better. So give me Chicago in a low-scoring game, 20-17.
I too pointed it out, but I mean, when we're talking about the Packers and the Bears, the rivalry at Lambeau Field, I know what Khalil Mack was able to do last time he was up there, but I'm personally going to take the Packers. I know it's going to be a slugfest, 27-24. Matt Nagy's going to come out with a hell of a game plan, but I just think that Mason Crosby's going to have an opportunity to win it at the end. So I'm going to say 27-24 Pack.
Big matchup in the AFC South. 8-5 Texans going to take on the Titans, 8-5 in Nashville, Tennessee. This is going to be a good one to watch. I have the Titans squeaking out a tight victory, 26-24 over the Texans. The Texans were completely embarrassed at home by the Broncos and Drew Lock. So you bet they're looking forward to getting back on the field. But Tennessee, they're clicking. They're firing on all cylinders. Ryan Tannehill's playing at another level. And Derrick Henry, I think he's the difference. I think he's going to have another big game on the ground. They'll control the time of possession over the Texans. They'll be at home. So give me the Titans, 26-24.
Yo, I think this is going to be a hell of a game. I personally, though, I'm going to take Deshaun Watson, man. I think those guys are going to have something to say. This is up for the division. Him and DeAndre Hopkins are going to have an opportunity to prove how good they really are in the league. And so I'm personally going to take the Texans 34-31.
5-8 Broncos at 9-4 Chiefs. I have the Chiefs winning this one, but not by a wide margin. I have the Chiefs edging them 27-20. I like Mahomes to put together another strong performance, but do not sleep on the Broncos. Drew Lock has brought some more juice to that Denver football team, but in the end, playing at Arrowhead is the difference. KC over Denver.
Yeah, I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win in an impressive fashion. I have them winning by 17 points, 34-17. Hopefully they make me right. I just think that they're starting to improve on all cylinders. Patrick Mahomes' health is starting to improve. The team is starting to improve, and I think that their defense is picking things up, man, only giving up 14 points a game the last couple games.
Dolphins 3-10 at the Giants 2-11. Another tank bowl we have on our hands. Give me the Giants to win 23-16 at home. I know Eli Manning is probably going to be the starter as Daniel Jones continues to nurse a high ankle sprain, and it'll be Saquon Barkley. He's a big-time playmaker. I think he breaks off a run or two that gives the Giants a narrow victory over the Dolphins.
Man, let's go Giants. Let's go to the G-man, as Chris Berman like to say.
Yeah.
Man, I think I don't know. I don't necessarily really have a prediction for this one. If I had to guess, man, I would go 2017 Giants. Hopefully these guys light it up and it's an entertaining game.
6-7 Eagles at the 3-10 Redskins. This is big for the Eagles to stay atop that NFC East division. I think they get the job done. I know they lost Alshon Jeffrey again. Lane Johnson's probably going to be out with that ankle sprain, but I still like them to pull one through 27-17 over the Redskins.
Oh, man. Tough matchup. The Eagles got to win. And, I mean, in order to stay alive, they have to win this game. And so I hope that they come out in impressive fashion, and I have them winning 30-13.
4-9 Jaguars, Gardner Minshew going on the road to take on the 6-7 Raiders at the Coliseum. The Raiders have been falling apart the last 3 or 4 weeks, but I like their chances to get the victory over the Jaguars in a low-scoring affair, 19-17 at home, with Derek Carr putting together a game-winning drive.
I think the Raiders are going to win in impressive fashion. I think that they're going to have an opportunity to get to Gardner Minshew a lot, and so hopefully Max Crosby continue to do his thing, and so I think Derek Carr is going to have an opportunity to score a lot of points, and so I have them winning 24-10.
6-7 Browns at the 3-9-1 Cardinals. Another big game for the Browns to just keep their playoff hopes alive. I actually am going to go with the underdog, Jerel. I picked the Bengals to upset the Browns last week, and that almost happened. It was 27-19. The Cardinals, I think they're a little bit better than their record indicates. They're at home. I like Kyler Murray in this one, taking on his former OU buddy Baker Mayfield. Give me the Cardinals in the upset, 30-23 over the dysfunctional Cleveland Browns right now.
Man, no. I'm going to take Cleveland. I think that they were impressive last week. I think that in order to win this game, they're going to have to go in there and they're going to have to run the football. I think Nick Chubb is going to continue his success, as well as Kareem Hunt having an opportunity to get some balls. And so I have them squeezing out a victory, man, 18-13.
9-4 Vikings at the 5-8 Chargers. The Chargers are coming off a dominant display against the Jaguars. Phillip Rivers lighting it up. The same week after you, I, and Arthur had a good crack about Phillip Rivers. But look, Jerel, this is a Isaac upset special of the week. Give me the Chargers to get the job done over the Vikings, 29-26. The Chargers, let's not forget, they are very talented on both sides of the ball. So I like them to pull it out over the Minnesota Vikings by 3.
Man, I think that the Vikings are going to have opportunities to win and win big. I think that they're going to shut down Austin Eckler, who had a hell of a game last week. Phillip Rivers should definitely take this kid out to dinner this week. As far as the 12 touches and over 200 yards all purpose, and I think that he had a phenomenal game. And so, but I don't think that Mike Zimmer is going to allow that to happen again this week. And I have the Vikings winning by 2 touchdowns. And 31-17.
8-5 Rams at the 6-7 Cowboys. I have the Rams winning this one and winning big. Right now, the Cowboys, they are struggling on all phases of the game. They look lifeless, and I think at this point, as a Cowboy fan, I want to see them turn the corner, but I think they are what they are at this point in the year. The Rams are playing hot football right now, so I like them to go into AT&T Stadium and take care of business. 38-23 over the Cowboys.
Man, I know you don't necessarily want to make that pick. So I'm going to make it for you, man. I'm going to take the Cowboys this week. I think that they're going to have an opportunity to find some success, man. If I'm them, Jason Witten, I'm in the locker room stressing the guys, this is our season right here. We lose this game, this is what it is. I think that you won't have to worry about getting to Philly because, they're going to be mentally heartbroken. We have an opportunity to win against a tough opponent at home, and I think that they're going to come out and be pretty impressive. So that make me right. I've got them 27-21 over the Rams, and hopefully I continue to keep this hot streak up.
Man, Jerel, I hope you are accurate, man. I just don't have the confidence right now in the Cowboys. We'll see, man. It should be a good game. But we got 3 more matchups here. Falcons 4-9 at the Niners 11-2. Give me San Francisco to win in a lopsided affair, 27-10.
Man, we have the same exact prediction for this game. I think the Falcons have found something offensively. They continue to, come out on all cylinders and fight. I have no clue why. I think, with the draft and coming up and the amount of talent that's going into the draft, I don't necessarily understand why they wanted to start coming out and playing their best football after they've already been eliminated from the playoffs. But I, too, have the 49ers winning 27-10.
Bills at Steelers, big time game. I'm glad they flexed this one to Sunday Night Football. 9-4 Bills, 8-5 Steelers. We're gonna see Duck Hodges again. He's undefeated as a starter. I'm going to actually go with the Steelers, Jerel, 23-16. I think Pittsburgh's defense is going to get the job done, and it should be a defensive battle because the Bills got themselves a heck of a defensive unit as well. But the difference is TJ Watt and Bud Dupree. Those guys coming off the edge. I think they're going to pressure Josh Allen and force a couple of turnovers. The Steel Crew comes through 23-16.
Bro, I like how you put that, man. The Steel Crew comes through. Like, that was kind of smooth. But I'm going to take Bills Mafia, man. I think, with this type of affair, these types of games, defensive battles, you have Ducky Hodges. He's 3-0 as a starter. Went out to Arizona. They got the win last week, but it was a big defensive win for them last week. You have Joe Hayden get the interception off Kyle Murray in a crucial situation. And so I just think personally, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. They've been phenomenal on the road. Their defense has held opponents under 21 points on the road. They've been spectacular. And so I just think that they're going to have opportunities to shine. And I like Josh Allen's ability to escape the pocket when the pressure is on, which I know that Bud Dupree and TJ Watt are going to be outside rushers coming or off that edge up the field. And I'd like for him to step up in the pocket and make some plays down the field with his legs and also his arms. So I think it's going to be a very tough game. I think it's going to be a close game for them to win. But I have the Buffalo Bills squeaking out a win, man, 23-20 out there in Pittsburgh. I know it's going to be exciting. It's going to be crazy. I have them squeaking out a win in Pittsburgh.
Really looking forward to watching that game. But to close out Week 15, Monday Night Football, the Colts 6-7. Man, they have fallen apart, Jerel. I know injuries have played a factor, but at this point, all they can hope is win out and see what happens. It's not looking very promising for them to get in the playoffs, but we'll see. Saints 10-3 coming off a really close loss to the Niners. Give me the Saints to bounce back at home, 31-17 over the Colts.
Yeah, I think it's going to, they're going to continue their offensive success. I like what they're doing offensively. I think that they're going to have to continue to improve defensively. I know the loss of Sheldon Rankins is definitely heartbreaking for them with the good football that he's been playing this year, and their defensive front being a real good strength for this team. And so I think that they need to have opportunities, and I think that their offense is going to be what carries them. And so I have the Saints winning 34-18. And it's tough to talk about the Colts like this because they were definitely high on a lot of people's radars in order to make the Super Bowl. And they've just been underachieving a lot this year, especially with the amount of injuries that they've been accumulating.
Now, we will answer one fan question before we end today's podcast. There's a couple that came in, but we answered them in our earlier topics, Jerel. We're going to answer Joshua's question. He wants to know, what is one head coach that you can sit here and say that he will be fired after this season?
Oh, well, number one is Jason Garrett, like, for sure.
Yeah, baby, let's throw a party.
Cowboys, like, yeah, man, I know you love to hear that, man. I know Jason Garrett for sure is one coach that's definitely going to be on his way out the door. Freddie Kitchens for sure in Cleveland. They're going to have to make a personality change there. They're going to have to get a guy in there that's going to be able to come with a traditional feel, but he's going to have opportunity to connect with the youth, because that's what's moving and progressing the NFL forward, are the young quarterbacks, the guys that are continuing to put their stamp and approval on the league, i.e. Baker Mayfield, those types of guys. A guy that's going to have to come in and make a personality change for this team, because they have a lot of star power when you look at it on paper, and they haven't equaled out to the amount of wins that everybody predicted this year. And so I think Freddie Kitchens is one guy you'll start to see be on the hot seat going out the door. And me personally, if I have to think, man, down in Houston, I lost all track.
Bill O'Brien.
There you go, man. I wanted to say O'Grady for a second. I'm Irish all over the place. But look, he's having an opportunity to bring his team to the playoffs, and I think with the type of team that they put together, I know that in their secondary they're a little bit vulnerable, but they've had so much. They've had a lot of opportunities in order to take over this conference, and I mean, not their conference, but their division, and they've continued to fall short, and they've allowed Tennessee to be in this position now to where they're actually fighting for their divisional lives this week up against Tennessee. And so I think another coach is going to be on the hot seat if they don't have an opportunity to take this type of team with the offensive firepower that they have to the playoffs is Bill O'Brien.
All right, 2 coaches for me. How about Doug Marrone from the Jaguars, 4-9. I think the writing is on the wall. They're going to be letting him go after the season. Disappointing year for the Jaguars. I know they had a quarterback debacle. It was Nick Foles. He got hurt. Gardner Minshew stepped in, played well, and now they went back to Minshew after Nick Foles. So they're going to have some financial questions to sort out with Nick Foles and what they're going to do with that $88 million contract. But I think Marrone is definitely done in Jacksonville. And the other coach, and maybe even GM pairing that is going to be gone on Black Monday, Pat Shurmur and Dave Gettleman. They're another pair that seem to be running thin there in New York with the Maras wanting to make a potential change. And now that Ron Rivera is floating out there, there's been some rumors about the Giants going after him in the offseason. We'll see what happens, but those coaches right there, along with the ones you mentioned, Jerel, they are in jeopardy of losing their jobs, and so we're going to see what exactly happens as the final 3 weeks of the season unfold. But there you have it. Jerel, I appreciate it again, man. Thanks for taking the time to join the podcast, and have a great rest of the week.
Man, thank you again. I've always appreciated having an opportunity to talk football, man, talk any type of thing when it comes to sports. And so fans continue to support us. Continue to share your questions and everything like that, and spice up these questions so we can get juicy, man. And we appreciate it, and continue to keep going.
We'll be back here next Wednesday. Everybody have a great weekend. God bless and take care.